Hi, everyone, and welcome to. This is going to be a really fantastic interview. It's something that we haven't talked about, and I'm so truly honored to have our next guest here with us. Now, she's a medical doctor and a naturopathic doctor. Now, she has written over 110 Kindle books and has co-authored over 33 health books. I mean, wow, this is just like getting my brain around this. It's absolutely amazing. And she has also written a really amazing book about the power of magnesium. And that's what we are here to talk about today and to find out what is the importance of having magnesium in our body and the lack of, and what it leads to. So welcome, Dr. Carolyn Dean.
Thank you very much, Elena. Great to be here and spread the word.
Awesome. I love your t-shirt. You have your magnesium sign on it. That's just so awesome.
Yes, and the reason why it's in a heart is because magnesium is so important for the muscles, and the heart is one big muscle. And people don't realize that when you don't have enough magnesium, calcium takes over and then can put the heart muscle into spasm, which is angina or even a heart attack. I mean, that's how important magnesium is.
The unfortunate thing is that, from the latest research actually shows that a very big majority of the population in the world are actually, they're lacking magnesium. So why do you think that is? And, what can we do to actually get more in our diet? And what is the importance behind having more magnesium?
Right, you mentioned diet, and that's where it fails because the soil is depleted of magnesium and other minerals as well. But because magnesium is necessary in 700 to 800 different enzyme systems in the body, it's the most useful mineral in the body. So it shows up as the epidemic which we see. And we'll get to all those points and the symptoms, but if the soil is not replaced with magnesium and other minerals, then it's not going to be in the plants. And I see the example of that every day when people who are on raw food diet or drinking their 40 ounces of green drink a day, they come to me with heart palpitations and leg cramps and insomnia and fatigue. And they think there should be the most healthy people in the world. And I say, well, you're magnesium deficient. They don't believe me, but then I tell them to go away and do either Epsom salts bath or take a good absorbable magnesium. And lo and behold, because they're already kind of very healthy in
Mhm.
what they're doing, they come back maybe in a couple of days and their symptoms are going away.
Wow, so quick, in a couple of days only.
hmm hmm
Wow.
For healthy people, of course,
Yes.
there are the lists of people who are on a lot of heart medications. Instead of being on magnesium, they're on 6 heart medications,
Mhm.
and they get more and more deficient with magnesium, and they take longer. I mean, most people though, when they take a good absorbed magnesium, some of their symptoms start disappearing very quickly, and they say, "Oh my gosh, this is important," and then they continue with their therapy and they watch their symptoms of heart disease. They are able to wean off their medications even. Their atrial fibrillation, the heart goes very erratic and people are put on blood thinners and beta blockers and just in case they develop high blood pressure, they're put on blood pressure meds. Just in case they develop diabetes, they're put on that. In case they develop cholesterol, they're put on cholesterol drugs. So all of a sudden, it's 6 drugs.
Wow.
And the just in case they develop all these other things, what happens is when you're on a couple of different heart medications, magnesium is so depleted that you do develop cholesterol, you do develop high blood sugar and high blood pressure. And the
Yeah.
doctors think, oh, yeah, it's just the natural progression of the disease. But what it is, it's a natural progression of you taking all those drugs that keep depleting your magnesium.
Do you find that, often with Western medicine, it's like we treat the issue per se, like the problem, but we don't actually treat the cause. And what you mentioned is like, and I've talked to a lot of people, and certainly I myself have been through that, especially when I was suffering with a lot of cramps. My son has experienced that because my son is a professional gymnast, and that was one thing that was never ever mentioned. What all we were advised was like, take some time off, recover. It's like, well, yeah, we kind of did that, but My 10-year-old was like going to bed screaming in pain because his legs were cramping. And as soon as we discovered magnesium, that was it. It was all gone. It was just unbelievable.
And those young people, if they continue in their athletics and they're just told to take an electrolyte drink that has
Yeah.
sugar and table salt, I mean, it may help disperse some of the symptoms. But anyway, if they go on in their athletics, they just get worse and worse and worse. And instead of just the leg cramps, they have insomnia. They can get panic attacks as their adrenaline goes all erratic. And they can get atrial fibrillation. And when they come to me as these elite athletes and say, I read about this. Do you think it's just magnesium? And I explain it to them. They understand it, but they go back to their sports doctors and, oh, poo-poo, oh, no, no, no. And they may do the wrong blood test for magnesium, say, oh, your magnesium's fine. Here, take these drugs. And it's only, very strongly independent person that will say, well, let me try magnesium. And it's so simple. So it is an incredible travesty that doctors are ignoring magnesium. And as you say, you had cramps, your son, so many people are affected. And I don't know if I'm answering your question. I seem to have gone off into outer space there. But
No, absolutely. Yes. One thing I wanted to ask you was, how does one actually realize that they might be lacking magnesium in their diet and they're magnesium deficient? Because certainly, well, here in the UK, unfortunately, is not a regular blood test that you can actually go and have done with your doctors. When my son was having all his cramps, when we actually went and asked them, they don't do that. I mean, if you want to go and have it done, yes, you can go ahead and do it privately, but it's not a common routine blood test that
no,
is done.
no. Yes, to explain that and why doctors ignore magnesium, it's because the test that they use in the hospitals for magnesium is called the Serum magnesium test. And because the heart especially requires magnesium to keep it beating properly, the body takes that into account. And if your serum magnesium, which is in a very narrow range, if that goes down, then the body compensates and pulls magnesium out of your bones and muscles.
Hmm.
And it protects the heart and makes the serum magnesium test always look normal. And there
Wow.
can be times when it goes low, and those times the doctor says, oh, okay, let's put up an intravenous magnesium and it solves the problem, but then they don't continue with the treatment. They just treat the symptoms medically. Oh yeah, your blood test is normal now in your serum. But anyway, so knowing all that, I started recommending a number of years ago the magnesium RBC test. RBC stands for red blood cells. So it's the magnesium that finds its way into the red blood cells. Now, they're not anything like tissue cells. They're not like the heart cells. Specifically, they don't have mitochondria. And it's in the mitochondria that makes our energy and does a number of other things where a lot of magnesium is used. Just as a sidebar, the mitochondria make your energy, your ATP. In 6 of the 8 steps that make your energy, it's called the Krebs cycle. 6 of the 8 steps require magnesium. So if you don't have energy, the first thing you should do is take magnesium. What do doctors do when you come into the office and say, oh, I'm tired, I'm not sleeping, and I have muscle cramps? Doctor says, oh, you're depressed, and
Yeah.
puts you on an antidepressant.
Yeah.
And that starts a terrible cycle of addiction to these either anti-anxiety drugs or antidepressants. So with the testing, then they're not even going to test that person who comes in with fatigue. In the hospitals, when they test for electrolytes, they don't even test for magnesium. They test for calcium, chloride, sodium, and potassium. And they leave out magnesium because of this serum test. So your question about how do you know, I've developed several lists in my Magnesium Miracle book or online on one of my blogs. There's a list called Gauging Magnesium Deficiency. And I have 100 reasons why a person can develop magnesium deficiency, 100.
Wow.
So you go through that list and you see if I have anxiety, that's an indication, or anger, or if I have high calcium, or the list goes on, sort of giving a lot of the symptoms of magnesium deficiency, but then also the reasons why, cramping, migraine headaches, acid reflux, from head to toe, headaches and migraines. The best treatment for migraine headaches is magnesium. They've proven that over and over again, so many studies, yet doctors don't recommend magnesium. Now, just to jump again to the side here in talking about magnesium prescriptions or recommendations, a lot of the early studies on magnesium therapy were done with magnesium oxide. That's because a very smart magnesium company gave free magnesium oxide to magnesium researchers. They used it to study, and then it became the magnesium to use for magnesium deficiency symptoms. But it's only 4% absorbed, and the rest of it goes to the intestines and causes the laxative effect. So doctors just get tired of people coming back. Well, I tried it. It helped me, for a couple of days, and then I got diarrhea. It has side effects, terrible side effects with magnesium and diarrhea. And, the other thing about magnesium, and doctors just think of it as a laxative, and they use it in very high amounts to give a bowel flush before your colonoscopy. So they just know it as a laxative, which is criminal, because if they kept their eyes open during biochemistry in med school. I had 200 hours of biochemistry, so I was glued to it because I was already into nutrition. And that's where I saw the Krebs cycle and the 6 places where magnesium was required. And I saw that biochemistry in the body does not proceed normally without the cofactors of vitamins and minerals. But instead of using those cofactors when those processes, get depleted or stop working properly, instead of using the cofactors, doctors are brainwashed into using drugs for symptoms. And in the allopathic world, it's the drugs, and in the naturopathic or natural medicine world, it's supplements. It's the same mentality. I call it green allopathy. Because I had once a client and a customer who was on 300 to 500 pills a day, supplement pills that her nutritionist gave her. Every time she'd go in, I have these symptoms. Oh, take this, this, and this. It was like a recipe medicine. So she was swallowing. I mean, her digestion was horrible because of all the binders and fillers in these supplements, for one thing. And, I said, well, the fact that you're coming to talk to me means that this isn't helping. And it was like a light went off. And a lot of people will say that, will have that reaction when I say to them, well, you're on these 24 to 100 supplements. If they were working, you wouldn't have to come to me for more advice. And they, oh my gosh, yeah. So people are taking supplements oftentimes because they read about them, or it's a fear mongering where they're told, oh, if you don't get this, high potency, esoteric, very expensive supplement, then you will suffer. So they'll take it for years without seeing any benefit. And I know the difference because when people take a good magnesium, they feel better usually within a day or within days.
Wow.
So something is working.
That is truly fascinating. Is there any specific form of magnesium that you would recommend? Because here in the UK, a lot of it was talked about that one of the best forms is actually transdermal, and it was very widely, recommended here. What is your opinion on that?
Yes, we had to go to transdermal when a lot of us realized to reach therapeutic levels of magnesium, then you had to avoid the laxative effect. So transdermal became the way. My personal history is of heart palpitations and leg cramps and insomnia and muscle spasms, and I'm one of the pretty large percentage of people. When I take any form of oral magnesium, I get the laxative effect right away. It's like a sensitive bowel. Now, doctors will say, well, when you get the laxative effect, you're saturated. No way was I saturated. So that's not a good criteria. So we all went transdermal, and I developed a lot of skin rashes and irritation because I couldn't apply enough, long enough. I couldn't sit in Epsom salts baths all day. And about 12 years ago, I began a search for a company who would make a non-laxative magnesium. And nobody would do it. Too much work, too much research, too much education to educate people about the difference. So I finally created my own magnesium. And if you allow me, I'll
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, it's broken down into picometer size, which is very tiny, but more importantly, it's a stabilized ion of magnesium from a magnesium chloride compound. And what a stabilized ion of a mineral does is it can very quickly and easily find its way through the mineral ion channels in cells because it's not inhibited by being a compound. So the magnesium and chloride separate. The magnesium is stable for long enough to be absorbed, whereas in a millisecond, magnesium, if it does get ionized in the liquid in your body, it'll join up right away with something else. So anyway, it was the stabilizing of this picometer-sized magnesium, and it means it's 100% absorbed. I was taking 1,200 milligrams of my magnesium. It's called REMAG, RE_MAG. I was taking 1,200 milligrams. The RDA is about 400. So I was taking 3 times the RDA. And after about a year and a half, I was saturated enough that when I was taking the, what would it be, 3 to 4 teaspoons of the REMAG, I started to get the laxative effect. So the laxative effect is still going to happen if your cells have enough. And then you let go of the rest. So I'm now just down to 600 milligrams of REMAG. So what I've been able to see with this is that we've finally gotten to a position where we can saturate the body with enough magnesium to get rid of the head to toe symptoms, to wean off the medications, to allow the body to function properly. And then after the REMAG, I developed a multiple mineral with the same type of effect where all the minerals are ionized. In that research, I realized that 9 of the 12 minerals in my REMYTE, REMYTE, support the thyroid. And what do we see in our society but hypothyroidism, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, all these problems with the thyroid? And what do allopaths do? What do green allopaths do? They wait till your thyroid is so low to have to replace the thyroid hormone. So thyroid replacement is end-stage treatment. And what I found, and even in people who are on thyroid medication, I've been on 60 milligrams of Armour Thyroid for years. And within 6 to 8 weeks of taking my REMYTE, my hands finally warmed up. Even on Armour Thyroid, I wasn't totally treated for low thyroid. My hands warmed up. I kind of sped up a bit, and I realized, oh my gosh, my thyroid is activated on its own. And I came right off my Armour Thyroid. I don't recommend that. I tell people to wean off. But since then, for the past couple of years, we've had many people who say they're able to come off their thyroid medication and be more supported in their thyroid rather than just giving a T3 or a T4 replacement. So there's actually what I've done, Elena, is I've been studying and researching health and medicine and nutrients for 50 years since I was in my teens. And I realized that I tell people I was around before chronic fatigue was even invented. I was around before AIDS was invented. And what I found is people keep layering on their different symptoms. There's allergies and then hypoglycemia and then chronic fatigue came and then, everyone's got low thyroid. And the adrenals are shot. And when you get to menopause, you have a terrible time. So all these layers, nobody is looking at the whole picture. You'll
Yeah.
get people writing thyroid books, and they will allude to the fact that, oh, yes, you probably have a leaky gut, you probably have all these other symptoms, but they still say, oh, my low thyroid wasn't discovered for 7 years, and I have all these symptoms. And doctors are saying this. There's a couple of thyroid books out, Amy Myers
Mm-hmm.
and what's Isabella Wentz, and they both say that their thyroid problem wasn't discovered for many years. They were ignored and everything, and then their TSH was abnormal, and oh, I've had low thyroid all this time. But if you read their history started with insomnia, panic attacks, muscle cramps, magnesium deficiency symptoms.
Yeah.
Their immune system was depressed, so they got antibiotics. So that's yeast overgrowth. And
Hmm.
and it goes in this downward spiral of how they finally, the only measurable test that showed dysfunction was their thyroid, because nobody's testing for minerals, nobody's testing for yeast overgrowth.
Yeah.
So they just kept layering on their symptoms until finally, oh, this test showed up. Oh, then I've they say I've had a thyroid problem all these years. They did not. They developed a thyroid and an adrenal problem at the end stage of their total body meltdown. That's what I
Wow.
call it. So I'm reminding people that if if they supply their body with the right minerals, do a gentle detox. I have a methylated B vitamin that comes with an amino acid methionine that supports glutathione production, as well as sulfur, taurine, which supports the heart, and the sulfur in these amino acids support sulfation in the liver. The methyl groups support methylation in the liver. And that's like a gentle detox, this formula called Realign. I have a protein formula because especially the vegan and vegetarian faction,
Mm-hmm.
they're just so protein depleted,
Yeah.
and they don't realize it. And they've been led to believe, as we said earlier, that if they're getting all their greens, then they're going to get enough nutrients, and they really aren't.
Yeah.
So there's what I've developed, because I said I've been at this so long, is a basic handful of supplement tools that a person can take so that they have the basic building blocks, they gently detox, and then we can see what's left over. Because if you go to a practitioner, especially an alternative practitioner, they'll say, well, we have to do a few $1,000s worth of tests and see what's happening. But what's happening is a result of magnesium deficiency and yeast overgrowth, they'll barely even test for that, and
Yeah.
we'll just start. I mean, they'll start layering on dozens of supplements. Whereas, what we have to realize is the basic building blocks of the body are minerals and protein. It's very easy,
Yes. Yeah.
and the sugar overload that people get in an attempt to give themselves some energy is actually feeding the yeast and giving you short bursts of energy that then cause a lot of symptoms down the road.
Wow. So would you? So I'm just like literally taking everything in, and I'm already thinking like I had one of my best friends recently diagnosed with low thyroid because she like and the funny thing was like when she kept saying like I can't sleep at night, like I'm exhausted all the time, I eat all the right foods that I exercise, but yet I'm still experiencing all those things. And then literally a couple of days ago she said to me, well, they're sending me, they think I might have a low thyroid, so they're sending me to a nutritionist. And it's like what you're saying is magnesium could have really prevented that right from the start before all this started.
Exactly. A lot of doctors do think that magnesium is the basis of our health problems and our chronic disease, but even they are thwarted because they don't know about magnesium absorption.
Yeah.
They'll say, well, you have to do transdermal, but thankfully with the Remag, I'm able to offer that to people as a therapeutic magnesium. And actually, I know your viewers are all over the world, but in the UK, there is someone at the Botanica Health in London that distributes our products.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's something that people can keep in mind, that we're trying to make it accessible. I don't
Awesome.
really work with wholesale through practitioners, etc., because it doubles the cost of the product.
Yeah, yeah. I
It's
understand. Yeah.
it's unfortunate that a lot of practitioners now, they have to sell supplements. It's the only way they can make money, but it means that the products are very expensive for the public.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, the Botanica Health is doing a good job to help us with our European access.
Awesome. I actually have an account with them. So now that you mentioned this, so yeah, I didn't even know. So wow, that's amazing. Because that was going to be my next question. How can people get access to it and how they can purchase it? So awesome. It will be actually great if you can send me the links, and I will make sure that I include them with your interview so people, can get in touch and purchase it themselves. And another thing I wanted to ask you was, is there such a thing as, like you obviously mentioned the side effects as the laxative effect, but is there such a thing where people might be worried that they might over supplement with it?
Yes, some of the papers that are written on the side effects of magnesium, they came out of people doing intravenous magnesium in hospital, and then finding out when people had heart block or very low heart rate, then too much magnesium can lower the heart rate a little more.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I can't recommend or prescribe to people except to say, well, if you really feel you need magnesium, take small amounts of the Remag and slowly work up. And I often do say, if you've got a very low heart rate, you really should look at a pacemaker,
Mm-hmm.
because then you can take your magnesium. I don't know if Remag, after decades of a magnesium deficiency, can change someone who has such a weak heart that their heart rate is low. So I do recommend
Mm-hmm.
pacemakers rather than um, making someone responsible for treating a heart condition. Anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's that. There's myasthenia gravis, which is a muscle condition where the muscles can weaken. And they say, since magnesium is a muscle relaxant, maybe that could be a problem. But I've seen people who've had myasthenia gravis due to, like, mercury poisoning, for example, who say they couldn't live without their magnesium. So
Mm-hmm.
there's caveats to it all. Complete bowel obstruction, if you can't have a laxative effect because you have bowel obstruction, then they say, well, you can't take magnesium. But again, if it's 100% absorbed magnesium in small amounts, but if you have bowel obstruction, you're in the hospital anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So there are just a few, you know, conditions where you're under the care of a doctor anyway. And otherwise, the laxative effect in a well-absorbed magnesium like Remag is just an indication that you've saturated your cells. But like I said, it could take years,
Yeah.
because it will be decades. I mean, look at your son, 10 years old, and he's having severe magnesium deficiency
Yeah.
symptoms. And it probably started many years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But because he'll be able to saturate now, he'll be fine.
Yeah. Awesome. And I've noticed, and I can tell this to all of you seriously. I mean, the change in him was just unreal because he exercises so much. I mean, he trains 16 hours a week, and that's just his gymnastics. And he's a very active child. On top of that, so he's constantly on the go. He never stops moving, and obviously, the more you exercise, the more deficient you become in magnesium. So that's why the whole cycle became with him. But it was just a mind-blowing change for him and for everyone else. I noticed it. And so to sum it all up, because this summit we are aiming to help women who don't feel good in their skin. And often what happens is when we're low in energy overall, we start getting depressed, we start feeling anxiety creeping in, and all those kind of symptoms can really bring us down. And that's when the whole self-esteem issue can become, and the issue with food and etc. So how magnesium can really change all this just by supplementing with this amazing mineral.
Yes, because as you said, it kind of starts with being fatigued and exhausted and overworked, and then you blame yourself, and you create this whole I'm too tired to do anything. I'm failing. I can't keep up. And women love to multitask and they do everything so well. And then when you start losing your energy, you feel you're failing. I mean, it's incredible what we do to ourselves. But yes, right away, the magnesium will help your energy. And but as we've said, you have to be considerate of your body. When people talk about the adrenal glands, finally becoming exhausted, and there are no tests for that either. Either
Yeah.
your adrenal glands are perfectly fine or they're completely collapsed. I mean, there's no middle ground in medicine, whereas I think there is with magnesium and minerals and potassium from your green vegetables and vitamin C. And a blog that I wrote called Lying Down Therapy. You have to rest. You have to give your
Yeah.
body time to recuperate. And a
Yeah.
lot of women, when they feel the pressure and they feel their bodies giving out, they just speed up. They just go more. They push themselves. And this pushing, just that, I mean, there's so many things we could talk about, but if you push yourself a lot, you can actually create hyperthyroid. You can sort of force your thyroid gland to become hyper to try to deal with everything.
Mhm.
And then the exhaustion phase is the hypothyroid. Thyroid has to do with time. If you don't have enough time for something, then you'll slow things down, which is low thyroid. Or if you want to speed things up to reach a goal, you create hyperthyroid. And we can do these things to ourselves. Our body is in a very dynamic state of reacting to the conflict in our life, and then the body reacts. If your partner is a pain in the neck, then you're going to develop neck pain. If you
Yeah.
can't stomach something, you're going to develop heartburn. If you can't take the crap, you're going to develop bowel problems. You really have to
Yeah.
realize that your body is very dynamic, and it's not a matter of taking a drug or a supplement to suppress those symptoms. It's recognizing that, maybe I have something to do with this. And then in my case, I put people on my total body reset program. The supplements I talked about, they're
Mhm.
like in a bundle. And we just tell people when they go to my website, they see it and they just press start here.
Mhm.
And that I got to that point because years ago I wrote a 104-week series called Completement Now, where you would learn about diet and um, in sleep and tension, and like there's seven pillars, I call them. 104 weeks of training people to take care of themselves.
Mhm.
People don't have time. They
Yeah.
love the series, but they don't even have time to read it or implement the simple steps. And it was around that time I realized I needed to make my own remag. And then I said, okay, then if you don't have time to read, I'm just going to give it to you.
Yeah.
Take these things. This is my gift to you. So anyway,
Yeah, fantastic. Well, Dr. Jane, that was so amazing. And, I'm so pleased that we got to do this interview and to share all this with everyone, because I think this is such an important piece of advice for people who are still really struggling with thinking that I'm doing everything right, I'm eating all the right things, I'm doing everything, but what I'm actually not paying attention to is, how what is my magnesium level in my body. So thank you ever so much. Can you please share with us, with all our viewers, how they can get in touch with you and find you in the social world?
Yes. My website is drcarolyndean.com. You can sign up for my free newsletter, and that website will take you to my other link, which is rnareset.com. That's my product site, and on there under blog, I have my radio show. People can call in from all over the world, or do it through Skype or whatever. On Mondays, today actually, we're taping on a Monday, but anyway, it's a pre-tape. So every
Awesome.
Monday I have a 2-hour call-in show, and that's kind of my consultation practice now. I used to do consults, but then there were a couple of consults. I said, oh, you just need to take my product. So I just couldn't charge them for a consult. And then I just said to people, do my products. I have an extremely good customer service where my customer service staff knows my products. They're all on them and they can help support people. And then, after a few emails or a conversation with my support staff, people are on their own and
Mhm.
they keep in touch, but it's incredible. I've been at this for 50 years, and it's the only time in my life I've been able to really guarantee that people will get better if they just follow some very simple advice and some very simple supplements.
Awesome. Sometimes it is that thing, isn't it? It's simplicity of actually finding what works, but we
Mm-hmm.
like to some often complicate everything because sometimes the simple thing doesn't even seem real. It's
No,
always
I mean, if to say to someone, your 30 years of suffering is a magnesium deficiency, it's almost an
Mhm.
insult. And
Yeah.
it's very distressing. It's like, why didn't anyone tell me this? How
Hmm.
horrible. I mean, but it's finally when they take the step to try the remag, and that they realize, oh my gosh, even people have known about magnesium and try all kinds of other supplements because they know